Good morning, everybody. Pastor Stitch, Narrow Path Christian Church, BC, Bay City, Michigan. Welcome to the Biker Devotional. I'll apologize ahead of time if this glitches. I forgot to switch to the Wi-Fi in my shop, and so it's on a weaker connection from the house. But that's, technology stuff, and so we deal with those when we are in the midst of our own thoughts, right? A lot going on in my life, and sometimes you start to think and wonder, how am I going to handle things, or why? Why is a good question. Why is a question we should ask. Most people think that we shouldn't question God, but let me share something with you. It doesn't hurt to ask God the question why. Be prepared for the answer I could tell you, but you wouldn't understand anyway. Or it's not for you to know, and be okay with that answer. Those are oftentimes the answer you might get from Him, and you have to be okay with that. Now, I have been asked hundreds of times, and I've asked God thousands of times myself, why, when you know what's going to happen, do you allow bad stuff? Why didn't you protect my daughter? Why didn't you protect me? Why didn't you protect so-and-so? Why did so-and-so have to die? The questions go on and on and on. And it's appropriate to ask those questions of God. If you don't, you're being disingenuous in who you say He is. If you think He's God, then you should really be willing to have those conversations with Him. If you have a relationship with Him as your spiritual head, your leader, the one you follow, then you need to be able to ask those questions and be able to ask with the expectation that you will be given everything you need to know, right? And so I get asked that all the time. I ask the question on a regular basis. Even today, there are times where things happen and I ask why. That's not a bad thing. It's a good thing to do. The Bible says in Proverbs chapter 20, verse 24, a man's steps are determined by the Lord, so how can anyone understand his own way? Well, if God determines the steps, what use is it, and why would He let this stuff happen? That's where our brains almost always go. But we miss it. We miss it so hard. And, I don't have this all together. I wish I did, because it would make my life so much easier to live if I did understand. But I do know this. It says, so how can anyone understand his own way? God determines your steps. You determine your reaction to it. And I think that's the biggest point to remember. God says, I need you to step into this position. Just a few days ago, really bad day. I was having a really bad day. I had already called one of my accountability partners, and I had ripped into him, not because I was mad at him. I ripped into him because he was a safe person that I could drop my stuff on, so that I could not have to have it running in my head. I went and I did what I had to do. I was walking away from a situation. I was in a store. I walked down the first aisle to head to the door to leave. I was still distressed, but I had dumped my stuff before I got there. And I walked into the liquor aisle. Guys, I'm an alcoholic. What would you assume the major display was on that liquor aisle that day? You guessed it, my drink of choice. And it was on sale. The Lord determined the steps. I got to choose to walk past that display, walk out of that aisle as fast as I could, and walk out the door. And thank God for the fact that He gave me the strength to not drink. Now, I wouldn't be able to stand here or sit in this chair and talk to you today about that situation and tell you there's hope through Jesus Christ if I would have bought a bottle. The Lord determined those steps. I can't possibly understand why, in that moment, He would have wanted me to walk down that aisle. I can make some assumptions today, but I shouldn't even do that. That's way too bold of me. The reality is, all I could do was choose Him in the moment. I say it all the time, and I think it's the most critical lesson we could ever learn. Every step we take, yes, He determined it. Our choice then is where we're going to put our focus, what we're going to do with that step. Daniel in the lion's den, a perfect example. He knew he was going to die. He stepped in, they locked him in, and God protected him. You know, those are real choices. A man's steps are determined by the Lord. So how can anyone understand his own way? You may not know where these steps are taking you, but you should know where your focus has to land when you take that step. I love y'all. I hope you have a great day. God bless.